Hey everyone. Hi, it's David Siegel. Today is Monday, October 9th. I'm glad to see you. This is the largest presentation audience I've ever addressed, and I hope you're ready to learn about blockchain, Ethereum, and crypto investing. For the next 60 minutes, I'll be talking about blockchain and crypto investing, and then I'll have about 10 minutes maybe at the end to answer a few questions. This is a lot of people. It won't really help you to type in the comment box. For me anyway, I won't see it. We'll be busy working on learning, flying over the space of blockchain and learning the basic concepts. You don't have to take any notes. You can just go to decentralstation.com. This is really the only thing you need to write down, decentralstation.com. And you can go to the reference section there. And in the reference section, you'll see an ebook that has all of the information, the notes from this talk. Plus, you'll be able to see the talk recorded later. So you don't have to take notes. They're all taken for you at decentralstation.com. In the reference section there is a file for you. I'll be talking about these basic topics today, and we'll start with an introduction to the general, about 4 important critical concepts that we need to move into the space of blockchain. So the first is centralized versus decentralized. And we know the centralized model. The centralized model is if you just take out your wallet and look in your wallet, everything there comes from some centralized authority that, where a small number of people make the big decisions, and everything goes through the bottleneck of an institution generally. And in every city around the world, the largest buildings are banks, insurance companies, and government buildings. Large institutions, doesn't matter what size the city, the biggest buildings are always banks, insurance companies, and government. And those buildings are full of people working, wiggling mice and typing on keyboards, moving data around. And what's behind those people are these data centers. Data centers currently use about 1.5% of world electricity, and we use them every day. You use them when you're using the maps on your phone or logging in somewhere on your browser. And there are a few problems. I apologize for my slides. They are done in Keynote, and then they typically get mangled when I translate them into PowerPoint, which I think is evil. Every year, between $400 and $500 billion of value of data and valuable assets are stolen from data centers, and that number is going up. We are actively losing the war on cybercrime, even though we spend $80 billion a year trying to prevent cybercrime. So we're kind of in a Red Queen situation where the faster we go, the behinder we get in cybercrime. The cybercriminals are winning. There's about $60 billion in insurance fraud, and every year about 1 trillion records are stolen from corporate and government data centers. And that number is not going down. We've seen some incredibly large hacks just in the last year, and that trend continues. So this is the decentralized model as opposed to the centralized model. Decentralized models like email. When you send an email to someone, that message doesn't go through there's no central email hub. Email just goes from point to point and ends up where it's supposed to go. Even if you wipe out, 90% of the email servers, your message will still get where it's going. It's a mesh network, and that's what we have in blockchain. If you want to be part of the blockchain, this is what it looks like. Anybody can put up a computer and be part of the network. Right now, there are about 9,500 computers securing the Bitcoin blockchain, and there are thousands of computers that manage that run the other blockchains as well. And all of these are just volunteers. You can just do it, and it's not totally volunteer, you get money for doing it. So it's kind of a mesh network that is its own economic ecosystem, and there are rewards for putting your computer on and being part of it. So the next concept is accounts versus math. Most of us have many accounts on different systems. I have 183 accounts where I have logins and all my information there, and we don't have to have accounts. I know this is going to sound weird, but on the blockchain there are no accounts. We just have math. And so this is a wallet. We don't have accounts, we have wallets. And if you look on the left under share, that's a number, and this number is called the address. The number that you share with everybody, and they can send you money or value to that address. And what unlocks it is this secret number on the right. These numbers are related through a prime number relationship. And that's the number you don't want to give to anybody. You want to back it up off of your computer, and you'll probably want to store that in several places or give a copy of that, like on a USB stick, to someone you trust. You never want that number sitting around on your computer where spyware might be able to see it. This is a wallet, and there are about 8 million wallets in use right now. These numbers are so difficult, it's so difficult to guess the secret key if you know the public number, that no one even tries. It would take all the computing power on Earth, trillions of years, to even have a chance to decode, to guess the key. It's like guessing an incredibly difficult password. So no one even tries to do that. There are other ways to hack. But the important thing to remember about blockchains is that even though we lose $500 billion worth of value every year to corporate servers and data centers, effectively no money has ever been lost from any blockchain. The blockchains are what we call immutable and not hackable, and there are plenty of hacks that go on around outside the blockchains, stealing people's private keys from places that they try to hide them. But in effect, we have no theft from the blockchain. Cyber criminals don't go after the blockchain itself. They try to go after the place where you store your private keys. So I'm going to show you the blockchain. This is, for many people, the first time you will have seen a block. This is the Bitcoin blockchain, number 469,000 something. You can see there are about 1,500 transactions in this block for about $23 million. There's also, if you look, there's a previous block, which is linked to a particular number. It's an address for that block, and a next block. So that cements this in between those two, forming a chain. And this is what's on the blockchain. This is actually looking at the blockchain here. A blockchain is a ledger. So if you look on the top left, you see a very long number. That's the transaction number there. And below that, I don't think you can see my cursor, so it's probably useless. But the number on the left is an address, the from address. And then on the right of the arrow, the to address. And then on the far right, we have a number, the number of Bitcoin transmitted or transferred from the from address to the to address. It's pretty simple. There's only 3 slots in each row in the blockchain. It's the from address, the to address, and the amount. And then if you look in the next one down, we've got from address to a different address. I think it's 300 and something Bitcoins. And then you see there's change back. If you look at the one on the lower right, it's the same address as the one that sends. So that's the change return. If we look at the third transaction, we have from a single address to 2 different addresses. I can't read it from here. It's $28,000 or something. And then when we have another one from 2 addresses to 2 addresses, again, this is a single transaction, kind of like the way you'd ring up something on a cashier. And then at the bottom, we've got many addresses going to 1, and that's going to be a commercial address. And in fact, here's an interesting address. Remember, there are no accounts. We don't know who owns these. They're just, anybody can have them. There's no login. There's no password. We don't know our customers, and it could be an 8-year-old kid in Ukraine, managing lots and lots of value on the blockchain. We have no idea who the people are. In fact, one person often has many accounts. Here is a commercial account. You see the address at the top left, and you see that this address has had about 12,000 and so transactions for over $2 billion worth of value in this address alone. That's going to be for an exchange. So you see there's quite a bit of money changing hands. Every day it's around $500 million in the Bitcoin world or more changes hands from address to address with no accounts. So now that I've shown you the blockchain, I'm going to ask you to forget about the blockchain because the blocks and the chains don't matter. Not at all. The blocks and the chains are really a way to create a shared ledger. So the way it works in our normal world is that we have separate ledgers. I keep track of my account, you keep track of your account, and we send an invoice over, then that's kind of an IOU. Someday later, or it's a request for payment, someday later I send something, it takes days to transfer and settle, and at the end of the quarter usually we kind of reconcile our accounts and make sure that mine and yours are the same, all the debits and credits add up. This is true when you report your taxes to the government. This is true when you do business with almost any other company. You would each keep track of your own accounts and you would reconcile it later. And that account, you got about an $85 trillion economy here in the world. It accounts for about $1 trillion worth of wasted effort and lost money, or by all this work we have to do to reconcile all these accounts that have to add up at the end of the month or quarter. And the trick of the blockchain is that we share a ledger. We share a ledger. So we use a common ledger, and when we do that, we say that the sale is the settlement. When I push the button to buy something, you get the money right then. There's no invoicing. It's a real-time transaction, and the blockchain is open source software that effects that transaction. It makes it go through. This is called an atomic swap. It has to go. So if I'm sending Bitcoin to you, and I say I'm sending you 2 Bitcoin, as soon as I click, OK, then it has to go through. It can't get lost. It can't be halfway. If you're sending me something else, that's kind of like a turntable. I get something and you get something in return, and it has to go all the way. It can't end up kind of that you get everything or I get everything. So we don't need escrow services because a shared ledger makes sure that all transactions clear properly. So this is why we call it the trust machine. The trust machine means that we know that when we send value or money to someone, that person will get it. And if there's a contract between us, that it will be honored for sure. There's no halfway. So the definition of a blockchain. A blockchain is a shared ledger that everyone trusts to be accurate forever. Notice nothing about blocks and chains. Anybody who starts telling you about the blocks and chains doesn't really know what a blockchain is, because we won't eventually, I don't think we will need the blocks and chains. We'll find other ways to create shared ledgers that everyone trusts to be accurate forever. Remember that a ledger is just a list of debits and credits. It is not a database. And everyone trusts the ledger, even people who don't trust each other trust the ledger to be accurate forever, which means it isn't hackable. It hasn't been hacked, and we don't expect it to be hacked. It would cost many billions of dollars to hack the Bitcoin blockchain, and then you'd have nothing to show for it. So we believe that we call this immutable record, and every single computer on that network, all 9,500 computers, have a full record of every single transaction going all the way back to the very first one by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009. So that's what a blockchain is. A blockchain's uses are 4 uses. You can store value, you can exchange value, you can store permanent records, and you can execute programs on those things. You can add business logic. This is all you can do. And if it turns out, I just want to make sure that I'm still broadcasting. Can everybody hear me? Type yes if you can hear me, and the feedback, please. Because we just had a power go out. I want to make sure. Someone just type yes, please. Can someone type yes for me, just so I see that people can hear me? Okay. I'm going to continue on and hope that people can hear me. If you think about what a bank does, yes, oh, see, people can hear me. Great. Thank you very much. Sorry, we had the lights go out here. If you think about what a bank does, you can map everything a bank does right onto these four things, except for answering the phone and smiling and human error. A bank does those things and the blockchain doesn't. So we're going to see this slide 2 more times. This is very important. You can store value, exchange value, store permanent records, and execute programs. All right, let's keep going. There's a huge vocabulary to learn here in this new world. If you were to take my 6-hour Bitcoin boot camp, you'd learn quite a bit of them, several of them. Today, we're just going to learn one or two more. And the most important is smart contracts. That's what people have been asking about, and that's what we're going to learn next. So smart contracts are the ability to program the things on the blockchain. And it's easy to relate to smart contracts because every day as we walk around and we buy a soda at the vending machine or an ice cream, or we get in a bus, we go into a Starbucks or someplace at cafe and use the Wi-Fi, we're interacting with contracts. And contracts set up rights and responsibilities. And when you see a website, you see the application that presents the content, and then you get to press on the offers. The buttons are offers. Here's a familiar one. These buttons represent offers that really are contracts. In fact, when you click on one of those offers, say at Amazon or eBay or any e-commerce, any site, you will execute a contract. And that contract will be written in the terms of service and the end user license agreement of the website. And it's several pages of tiny print that no one ever reads. But if you have a problem with the responsibility of the other party, then you'll have to read that, and you may have to call a lawyer and use the old-fashioned way of resolving your conflict by reading text and arguing either on the phone, in letters, in court, and so forth. That's the old way. And the new way is that all of those mechanisms, the entire agreement is actually in the code of the contract you invoke. And I will give you an example. So, sorry about the awful transitions. So here's one called Ether Risk. Ether Risk put up an experiment a year ago and said, okay, put in your flight. What day are you going on and what flight are you taking? And then using your wallet, which is up in the upper left-hand corner, which has Ether in it. Ether is a cryptocurrency similar to Bitcoin. You can just put in as much Ether as you want, and you'll bet that it's a bet. You're going to bet that your flight is late or canceled. And the other side, the other side of the smart contract is going to bet that your flight is on time. It's a payoff contract so that if they will get information from the Central Aviation Authority after your flight leaves or is supposed to leave. If it leaves more than 45 minutes late, you will get a 10 times your money payback to the same address that you used to send the money in the first place. And if your flight is canceled, you get a 30 times payback right to the address that sent the money in the first place. There are no accounts, no phone numbers, no names, no hotline. There's not even really a company here. It's just some software sitting on the blockchain. And in fact, you don't have to be on the flight. You could be a hedge fund or just someone in the mood to make a bet on flights. And you would be able to bet as much as you like on any of these outcomes as long as you conform to the rules of the smart contract. It may have It may have a maximum bet, whatever. This is just a payoff contract, and it's called claimless insurance. There's no phone number to call, and you don't resolve anything. It's all resolved by the Federal Aviation Authority data that says whether the flight was late or canceled. You could be a natural buyer and buy yourself some insurance that way, or you could just be someone who's trying to make money this way by maybe you know more than they do. And in fact, this kind of betting market helps us set better market prices, and airlines could use that data, betting data, to set better flight departure and arrival times. So there are a lot of decentralized apps coming online now. This is a full betting site where you can bet anything you want with anybody who will take the other side of your bet. And here's an example I've created. I want to bet what the nominal GDP will be for 2017. If we use that kind of betting, we'll be generating information that the central bank can use to set the price of interest rates. And in fact, we can disintermediate central banks, which are people who don't often make the best decisions, and just use software like smart contracts to set interest rates and have a more predictable, less volatile economy, and try to reduce the effects of the business cycle using prediction markets and not experts. So there are many ways to use betting markets, and smart contracts are going to make betting markets much easier and much more reliable. There's no third party in the middle. You're betting with the contract itself. Here's a group called Everledger building a supply chain management system for diamonds. Diamonds are in heavy conflict all the way through the chain, and lots of people would like to get their hands on the data to try to change that data and get their hands on the diamonds. By using Everledger, you write to the blockchain every time a diamond moves from point to point, so it's immutably written in the ledger that everyone trusts to be accurate forever. This is coming to many supply chain pilot projects now, and will be rolled out to normal supply chain software in the coming years. We have lots of other kinds of marketplaces. Oh yes, this is accounting software where you have your normal separate ledgers, but you share a third rail, a shared ledger in the middle that everyone writes to. And you know what? Eventually, we can take off the training wheels and just leave the separate ledgers behind and use that as a way to transition to a shared ledger. So this may be the accounting system of the future. So, and then we have markets. This is an exciting project called Open Bazaar. It's open source software that essentially replaces eBay. eBay has about $30 million a year in profit, and this is just open source, so it's peer-to-peer. Much of this world is peer-to-peer, and people are able to trade with each other without trusted intermediaries, because the blockchain and the smart contracts do that. So here's someone's store on Open Bazaar, and you can buy things with cryptocurrency, and they'll send them to you. And then when they see that the item has been accepted by the UPS, parcel service sending a signal back that it was accepted, then the final amount of the money can transfer. So we're trying to do this in a very automated way and get rid of all the middlemen, as many as possible. There are many more apps. This one is for land. We're starting to put land title deeds on the blockchain, and then you could actually have your your mortgage on in your wallet, and then it would be a lot safer than keeping it in some central location. There's also a social network now on the blockchain, and this is impossible to kill because thousands of computers run the social network. There's no single company, there's no Zuckerberg-like person who could turn off or decide that he doesn't like what you're saying. It's all on the blockchain for people to share messages from peer to peer with no central servers. That's another application that's coming. Here is an app that's an exchange. This is another kind of wallet. And the cool thing about the Lika wallet is that your money is on the blockchain, but you have the private keys on your phone. They don't have it. So their exchange is not a target for attack because they don't concentrate the value, because everyone stores his own private keys. This is called atomic ownership, where we take what could be billions and billions of value in a central server and atomize it out to the individuals who own it, and I call that the personal data locker. You should be able to own your own data, and therefore the exchange is no longer a target for attack. Hackers love it when there are billions of dollars concentrated in one place. Then it's worth going to the hassle of trying to get it. When it's on your wallet and it's incredibly secure, it's not worth it to hackers. It's decentralized, and that's a good thing. So there are more and more decentralized apps coming. This is Power Ledger, which has just completed their ICO. They raised about $30 million Australian dollars for managing power, and their token represents a unit of power, so that you'll be able to generate power and then sell it back to the grid, and the tokens will be the atom of information in the accounting system for the smart energy grid. And this is going to come to most energy grids over the next 10 years. Just the infrastructure of the blockchain makes this stuff easy. You don't have to really have much of an IT department. You can let and IT departments, keep getting hacked anyway. So you can let the blockchain perform all these services and infrastructure. At 2030, my company, we are building a new token that represents a portfolio of about 50 cryptocurrencies in a single token. And you'll be able to buy that easily on our whitelist exchange. This will be for accredited investors only, because our token will be a security. So to be compliant with the law, that will only be for accredited investors. And there's a lot to talk about legal issues and the blockchain. I think we'll get to that in a second. So there are also private blockchains. And I won't give an example of that, but private blockchains are going to be very useful. That's where you have to log in with an account to a blockchain that is permissioned, that you get let into. And there'll be lots of reasons that people are already using private blockchains, and there'll be many more. I'm going to skip that example. Now I want to talk about law, as I mentioned very quickly. When you have a smart contract, that contract says what's going to happen. And it's, when we say code is law, whatever that contract is programmed to do, it's going to do, and no one can turn it off. 9,500 computers are executing it, thousands of computers are executing it, and there's no way to turn it off. This is why we call the blockchain the world computer. The world computer lets you execute smart contracts, and they must run once you start one. Don't start it unless you're sure. And you may need a contract validator, a third party, to tell you that that contract does what it says it does, instead of, you wouldn't want a smart contract from Bernie Madoff, I don't think. And so you're going to want to make sure that smart contracts do what they say they will do. Laws and regulations will also merge toward code. They will become code and eventually come back in 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Many of the laws will be written in code with parameters, and they'll be much more flexible, and then they will just execute, and we won't have any more paper laws. Boy, that'll be an amazing world, and that's the world we're starting to build at 2030. So it's all just getting started. There's my incredible animation showing that these things are all starting to converge. It will converge as code, and we'll have less and less writing. So I'm going to just give you a quick summary of what I've just said. In data centers, using the centralized model, we have business logic and data at the center, and we're trying hard to add security around it and failing. It's not going that well. Data centers are getting more and more notorious for being compromised. It's worth a lot of money. to get that information. And then with the blockchain, we start with security at the core. Remember, the private keys are impossible to guess. So we have really unbreakable security on every single item. You can see what's on the blockchain, but you can't get it. You can't move it unless you have control of it if you have the private key. So that security is at the heart of everything on the blockchain, and now we're adding, through smart contracts and through other efforts and new projects, we're adding data, storage, identity. There's already several identity schemes on the blockchain, privacy. We're working on a business logic of all different, to apply to all different areas of business. So what can you do with a blockchain? I'm glad you asked. You can store value, you can exchange value, you can store permanent records, and you can execute programs on all of those things above. That's the magic of the blockchain, and it replaces most of those large buildings we saw on slide 3 or so. Because those programs take away the repetitive white-collar work. The repetitive office work will now be done by software that everyone trusts to be accurate forever. And these are the areas it's coming to and more. If you're sitting in your chair, you're probably going to be affected. You're probably someone who's likely to be affected by blockchain and by shared ledgers. And if we were in the 6-hour boot camp, which by the way is in person, we don't have it recorded online yet, but you can buy it if you're a company. We would learn about many of these applications and really go through how all that works. And just a couple quick ones. This is the Pillar project, which we just had an ICO for, an initial coin offering for in July. We raised $20 million in Ether. Thank you to Pillar token owners out there. I'm sure there are several. And the Pillar project has an exciting feature. It's going to replace accounts. The goal of the Pillar wallet is to replace accounts with wallets. So at Pillar, which is now an open source foundation, we are building the next generation wallet that will become a smart wallet and will help you be your digital assistant to manage all your daily tasks. And you'll have your bank account on your wallet, you'll have your insurance, you'll have your all your assets, your kids or your family information, your health records, your work records, education, all that stuff will be in your wallet under your control. This is called the personal data locker. We will get rid of apps and turn them into real-time services, and it's even compliant with GDPR, the General Data Protection regulations coming to any company that does business with a European citizen. The wallet is a better solution than adding more cloud software to be GDPR compliant. We have a whole GDPR division going at the Pillar project to help companies switch from accounts to wallets. We'll have another webinar about that actually fairly soon. So what are the implications of this? Well, you can imagine there might be a few. The number one implication is disintermediation. So let's talk about an example from the world of insurance. In insurance companies are in the middle between consumers on the one side, who are the natural buyers of insurance, and on the other side are piles of money. Could be from hedge funds, sovereign wealth funds, family offices, large piles of money that then get fed into insurance companies. They do a lot of calculations to try to, actuarial calculations, and then they make products, and they sell those products through heavy marketing campaigns and try to build their brands and convince people to buy products because they know these products are very sticky. People don't like to change their insurance very often. And that's wonderfully profitable for insurance companies. But we could replace the insurance company with markets. We could get rid of the entire insurance company and replace it with a bunch of tokens. Each token is what I call an insure bit. That insure bit is a token that represents 1 unit of insurance for, let's say, $1, £1, €1 for 1 month, and it insures against a particular thing like a tornado or a storm or flood or fire or whatever you like. And that insure bit, then there would be millions and millions of insure bits on the market. People could create their own, and then the market would just magically, people would put their own portfolios together of insure bits. And of course, it wouldn't be them doing it by hand, it would be their own software. And so then we have real-time insurance. And it may have to do with your plans coming up, maybe a new member of the family, maybe someone transitioning off to college. It could be moving to a new home, or it could be the weather forecast could change the amount of insurance you want to buy, and that could all be done automatically by smart contracts interacting with insure bits. And on the other side, the funds could all use their quantitative methods to try to create portfolios of insure bits that are profitable to them. If the market has enough liquidity, then the price will clear at a price that is good for both sides. And this is the magic of markets replacing central trusted third parties. So disintermediation is a big thing. We're going to real-time and continuous economy. We have we've got an old-fashioned batch economy that clears. If I wire you money, you don't get the money. You get an IOU. Your bank shows you an IOU on your statement, but actually the banks clear overnight and they settle the difference at night. It takes up to 24 hours to clear that. And we're going to a real-time continuous economy where the books are always done. If we can get some countries to start switching to a consumption tax, then your taxes would always be done and you wouldn't have to file anything about your income because there's no need to tax people's income. You could tax spending, and that could be done in real time, so your taxes are always paid. There's no special day of the year where you have to pay anything. There's the idea of moving our world of business from push to pull is explained in my 2010 book, Pull, which is, I believe, a transformation that every industry is going to go through. We've already seen the media business. Used to be you had to watch your TV show exactly at the time it came on, and if you had to go to the bathroom, you'd miss it, or then finally came the video recorder. Well, that's all over. Now we consume media where we want it, when we want it, the way we want it, and that transformation is a one-time transformation that is coming to every industry. Many industries are in the middle of it, but if you change from a factory model to a laboratory model, you will set up to be pulled, and that is the model of the 21st century. So we're trying to get away from the factory push model and into a laboratory pull model, and everything digital will accelerate that, and the blockchain is a big part of that. Autonomy is not just for the actual blockchain nodes themselves who have a copy of each blockchain, but every person now will have far more information since we can just get it off the blockchain. And when we have more autonomy, we have more freedom, more responsibility that we can do things, make decisions on our own. So not only can we see the end of credit cards from here, credit cards account for about $13 trillion of our economy and about $4 billion in profit for credit card companies. We can see the end of credit cards because this can just be person-to-person transfers without third parties, but we can maybe see the end of management because these kinds of, we'll be able to build voting systems where people can actually vote on what they want, not to vote for the representatives they want. So it will change government and it will change companies' management in a big way, because people will be able to do more between each other and not need middlemen or hierarchy. The world is going to get a lot flatter with blockchain. So you can see that these implications, this is as big as the web or bigger. This is the web of value and the web of trust coming, and it is going to replace most of the systems we use today, or certainly be built into many of the systems we use today to transfer value. Mesh networks replace central hubs, making them far more resilient and they scale better too. We're going to have, we got 7 billion people on Earth right now. We're going to have 9 billion people in 30 years, and mesh networks scale far better. So mesh networks plus autonomy, for example, airplanes now, the Federal Aviation Administration in the United States realized that airplanes do better when they just have all the information of the entire network on each airplane and let the airplanes sort it out rather than ground control and radar and watching everything. So now the air traffic controllers don't have that much to do because the airplanes more or less negotiate flight patterns among themselves using algorithms. And we're going to get to work for purpose. Not only do we have the reach of the internet to find people to work with, but because of the blockchain, we'll be disintermediating so many of the gatekeepers and bottlenecks that we'll have a better choice on what to do. What we do with our time will be more centered around purpose and collaboration than around just having to have a local job or having a boss. So purpose is going to be a big deal, finally. And then the last implication, in case you liked all the previous ones, it comes along with technological unemployment, which is absolutely going to happen. So I think it's fairly easy for all of us to see that we're already past the point of peak blue-collar worker, right? We're about 5 to 10 years past the total number of the peak number of blue-collar workers on Earth for all of human history because of automation. And that number is that's going to start to accelerate. You know, driverless cars and 3D printing and all this stuff is going to take away a lot of blue-collar work. But now we can imagine that we are almost at peak white-collar worker for all of human history. The repetitive white-collar work is going to be done, is already being done by software, and it's more and more going to be done by software like smart contracts, so that there are whole swaths of jobs that have millions and millions of people doing them will be replaced by software because this is the low-hanging fruit of the repetitive white-collar work. Probably in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see peak white-collar worker for all of human history. That is something we don't know what's on the other side of. We've never experienced it. Could be great. Could be lots more leisure time and people work less. Could be very unevenly distributed and could lead to more conflict. We don't know. I would encourage you to keep an open mind. The only thing I can say is that technological unemployment is going to accelerate, and over the next 20 years will dramatically change our business landscape. It won't be recognizable. Almost all the jobs that exist today will not exist in 20 years. The next 20 years are going to make the last 200 years look like a warm-up. So don't count on very many things continuing along in any kind of linear way. As I say, we're at the elbow of everything now. We're just about to hit the accelerator and really move things forward and become far more efficient. That's all part of the package. So, what can you do with a blockchain? You can store value, you can exchange value, you can store permanent records, and you can execute programs like using smart contracts to effect transactions that normally would take either people or these institutions that are the trusted third parties. And now, sort of the big finish here is that we have a choice to make. And I want you to really think about this choice. We've spent the last 40 years, more than my professional career, digitizing our world. What have we done? Well, we've digitized the old paper way of doing things. That's why these huge buildings are full of floors of people pitchforking data from one screen to the next, because we haven't changed the basic paradigm. We're just digitizing our paper trail, and our paper processes and our batch processes have all been digitized. And we've worked on that hard, and we got to be 97, 98% through with that. And yeah, I guess we could keep going and eke out the last couple percent and get apps on our phones that can scan invoices, I guess, and then use artificial intelligence to read the numbers and then pay them in 29.5 days and do all that old-fashioned paper chase, or we can change our mindset, because whenever there's a technological revolution, it's never about the technology. I've been through 3 of them. It's never about the technology. It's always about people and their willingness to adapt, to try something new and think in a different way. So we can stop imitating the old paper way and put ourselves on a new foundation for the 21st century by going to a decentralized economy with a decentralized mindset. And that will change our $85 trillion economy to become far more efficient. And we'll get, thank goodness we're getting rid of the repetitive white-collar jobs. That's exactly what we want. We want to move to a world where people are passionate about what they do, where there's probably more leisure time, where you can we can learn more, we can try more things. And it's not about the repetitive work, it's about the intellectual or the creative or the innovative work that we're all going to do to solve many of the big problems on Earth. So I think we have an important choice to make. And if you choose, right now, if you choose to get involved in the decentralized world and be part of our movement, I ask you to spend 1 hour a week watching YouTube videos, subscribe to some newsletters. I've got one, there's some excellent ones, and 1 hour a week learning about blockchain, getting into those terms that I outlined at the beginning. You can watch this video again. There's plenty of websites to learn, and plenty of talks to watch. This is how I learned a lot of everything I've learned, just by watching and learning from other people. And I hope that you will find that this journey to an unknown, untested, unsure world of blockchains, there are hundreds and hundreds of blockchains now, will take us on a path toward a much better society. And so I hope that instead of, we've got 5 billion people on Earth with bank accounts now, and we've got 2 billion people unbanked. Well, I don't think we should get those 2 billion people in the developing world set up with accounts from large institutions. I don't think we should. I think we should think hard, work hard, and get 5 billion people on this planet unbanked and into a completely different mindset where we work person to person and there aren't any bottlenecks, and we give every person on Earth who's got a phone, who's got internet access, and that's almost everybody now, access to clean resources, to world-class data, services, infrastructure, education, and governance. And I hope you will join me on that journey. Thank you. These are some of my URLs where you can spend some time learning. And now I've got time, as I said, I've got about 12 minutes to go into crypto investing, which many people are interested in. So we will change gears now and talk about the world of investing. And this is a deck that I am not going to show all of, but this is the outline of my investing deck. By the way, I have it here on BrightTALK. You can look up my crypto investing 1 hour presentation. This is a 10-minute compressed version of that. At the end, I'll have a few announcements. So we've got now about $150 billion worth of cryptocurrencies. There are probably about 1,000 different cryptocurrencies, not just Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually less than half of it. Ethereum is number 2. These are, I think Bitcoin's got around 60 billion and Ether's, I forget. I think Bitcoin may be around 80 billion, Ether's around 30 billion, 40 billion. We've already got 12 cryptocurrencies that are over 1 billion in market cap, 12. you probably haven't heard of most of them. So this is a real economy. We've got $150 billion now. We're going to see probably $1 trillion worth of value on blockchain in the next, I don't know, 3 years. I wouldn't be surprised if it was $2 trillion in the next 5 to 6 years. Yeah, this is not to be ignored, and people are making money. They're making money by buying and selling tokens. Tokens are these different kinds of tokens. Let me just illustrate with on the left, we've got currency, cryptocurrency, which is every blockchain has its own token called a cryptocurrency, like blockchain, Bitcoin, Ethereum Classic, Ripple. There are many currencies, and the only thing you can do with a currency is trade it. You can either mine it or earn it, or you can trade it. You can trade it back and forth with other people. So currencies go kind of in a circle from passing from hand to hand. I think I've got this here. So then those are called coins. Currencies are called coins, and they go in a circle. Then we have tokens, and tokens are attaching value to maybe a piece of a coin, or just attaching value to some unit that's on the blockchain. And many of those go in a straight line, so that you would, for example, buy some tokens, some Pillar tokens to use in your Pillar wallet, and it functions as a unit of exchange inside the wallet ecosystem, and it's like a poker chip. So I like to tell people about poker chips. Poker chips have a value, and then you use them in the system, and then they go into the bin after you use them, and then the dealers and the people accepting these tokens don't want the tokens, they want cash, so they take them back to the cashier, and they go back around again. So you go to an exchange, you buy tokens, you use them, and then the people accepting tokens take them back to the exchange and change them for units of value that they like. A friend of mine says, I'm very, very risk averse. I only keep my money in Bitcoin. I'm not interested in the banking system, which has far too many problems. So use any store of value you like, but we use tokens to kind of get things done. A token is an IOU that helps you get things done. There are actually several different kinds. We have tokens that represent assets. I've explained the crypto index token. There are tokens that represent assets. I'll just go back here, like gold. You can buy a gram of gold on a token, and then when you trade the token, you trade the ownership of the gold. You could buy land that way. You could have a car, a boat, many assets. A tanker full of oil. Many assets will be on tradable tokens in the future, and there are already thousands of kinds of tokens you could buy and trade. There are system tokens, as I explained, that are kind of like poker chips, and then there are many other kinds of tokens. For example, for stock of a company, for lending, debt tokens, and other kinds of financial instruments can be made into tokens. Many of these are securities, which can't legally be sold to the public without being registered. So my token called the Cryptex token has to be sold as a security. We can't get registration for most of these securities, so we're creating a market just for accredited investors to be able to trade them freely. Many other people are taking different approaches to figuring out how to sell securities to investors. Investors want to buy these things, but we have to watch out for regulators who can do nasty things and are causing a lot of uncertainty in the market at the moment, although it really hasn't changed the appetite of investors to want to buy tokens, especially at the ICO, the initial coin or token offering. So we have the big caps over $1 billion right now. The mid caps are 100 million and up. Small caps are 10 million and up, and then everything under 10 million is really the wild, wild west. Even under 100 million is still the wild, wild west. Most of it is pretty high risk, high reward investing, we hope. You want to exchange tokens on the exchange and then put them into cold storage. Another thing you would learn in my bootcamp, and of course you can just learn about cold storage on your own. That gets them off the exchange where they are vulnerable to attack. So watch out. This is all frontier investing. Build yourself a smart portfolio. I'm going to quickly run you through 6 points of portfolio construction for people who are buying and selling tokens. First of all, don't trade. Trading back and forth a lot has just been shown not to do as well as buy and hold. I tend to, when I buy something, I put it into cold storage and I don't touch it. I bought Ether at $3. Now it's at $305. That's doing pretty well. I'm still not touching it. Still think Ether has plenty to go. Bitcoin's recently up into the $4,500 range. I just won't be surprised to see Bitcoin clear $10,000 in the next, I don't know, 5 years. I think these are good hold investments. I don't really think you should trade. By the way, that's probably another rule coming up. So the first thing is evaluate your overall portfolio. Most people have poor portfolios. Fortunately, I have a webinar here on BrightTALK on postmodern portfolio theory, and you may want to learn to diversify to build a more modern portfolio. As I say, exposure is greater than risk. Risk is okay. What you don't want is too much exposure. I probably have all these things coming. So first thing, don't put more or really less than about 10% of your investable assets into crypto investments. I think 10% is about right. I don't think you should have less, and I don't think you should have more unless you have a really good reason to. You might be overexposed, but if you're pretty serious about it, you might get up to about 20%. Nothing like having a good diversified portfolio. And even within that, you want to diversify. So you determine your allocation to the various market capitalizations and then diversify within them. So it's probably more diversifying than you expect. You want at least 5 large cap assets, large cap coins or tokens, and at least 25 different ones. If you're an ICO collector, you want to buy small amounts of many. You just have no idea how these are going to play out. And I guarantee you most tokens are going to be worth 0. These are lottery tickets. You are playing with fire. There's tremendous upside. Any portfolio of, say, 25 to 50 ICO tokens is probably going to do pretty well because maybe 5 or 6 of them are going to provide all the value, and most of the rest will eventually be worthless. This is the kind of investing environment we're in. Buy and hold, don't trade. I've explained that already. And finally, put your coins and tokens in cold storage. Do not leave them on an exchange. There are a few exceptions. The Liquid exchange is an exception because you have atomic ownership there, but most exchanges are a big target for a hack. You want to control your own private keys, take responsibility for them. Every year, people lose more than $100 million worth of cryptocurrency simply because they can't find, they've lost their private keys. It's true. So have a smart way of backing them up. Learn about cold storage. You're going to put these special numbers onto a bunch of different devices and get them off your computer and put them in different buildings and make sure you remember where they are, because people really do lose millions of dollars worth of value. And if they could just find that private key, they'd be much more wealthy. But it happens all the time. You can also make lots of mistakes with crypto investing. So always do small test amounts first. Build your confidence up. Do not make large purchases. And that's much of it. This talk has been brought to you by 2030. I'm the CEO of both companies. These are Pillar is a nonprofit organization based in Switzerland that is dedicated to bringing about the Pillar wallet, which is an open source wallet that will eventually become your digital assistant, and where you will hold all of your assets in your Pillar wallet. You'll do much of your everyday digital life will be run from your Pillar wallet, and in fact, we hope eventually to replace iOS and Android so that you'll have a Pillar phone, which I call going from not a smartphone, but a dumb phone. You'll have a dumb phone that runs your life in the way that I talk about in my book, and you can see videos on our website, pillarproject.io. I'm also the CEO of 2030, which is going to develop a wide variety, a broad portfolio of crypto and blockchain projects, and you can get involved with both these projects. We have websites and we have newsletters, and we have some exciting stuff coming up. So a few announcements. I've got a token webinar coming up right here on BrightTALK on Thursday, October 26th. I hope you'll join me for that. Please go to pillarproject.io. You'll learn that we are a volunteer organization. We have over 900 people in our volunteer community. Many people are learning by doing with us, and we strongly encourage you to get in, get your hands dirty, and start doing things. You might volunteer with us. You might volunteer with another open source foundation that's doing great work. I really encourage that. pillarproject.io/community is the way you will get there. By the way, we're also hiring for our office here in London. We've just moved into the Barclays Rise Accelerator and are expanding. So we're looking for programmers, back office people, all kinds of people, and we draw them from our online community. So please join our online community. We're also going to have a big announcement for 2030 in about a week or so. So please be sure to get our newsletter. And we only have one newsletter right now, so you can get it at pillarproject.io, and we'll be making a big announcement, and you'll learn about that in our newsletter. All right, so I've done it. I've got 9 minutes to go. Hello from Istanbul, nice to see you. The deck I don't share, but the video I do, so you'll find that here. We also have a big channel on YouTube. Please go to YouTube and type in Pillar Project, and you'll see I'm making videos all the time. You'll see lots of videos of this presentation and others. It's just better to see me present it than it is to get your hands on the deck, because my deck actually changes all the time. Should you put money into cryptocurrency? I think you should really diversify, and that's why I'm building the Cryptex Index at 50 cryptocurrencies in one single coin. But unfortunately, because of regulation, it's going to be classified as a security and can only be sold to accredited investor. We are building an accredited investor market. If you're interested in that, can help us raise money for that, we're very interested. That's at 2030.io. Here's a question. Who or what entity issues the private key to your wallet? Well, you can make up a wallet through math. It's just an algorithm, and it's an open source algorithm. You just sort of push the button and say, make me a new wallet, and bang, you get a new public address and private key, and no central authority is required. There are more private keys, well, there are more addresses than there are atoms in the known universe. So we don't have much chance of any kind of collision. You just make up a new one from scratch every single time. Amazing, huh? It's math versus accounts. Could this public key be guessed by quantum computing? I get this asked every time, and the answer is, my answer is, you're going to have at least 50 qubits working at 90% accuracy to even have a chance of breaking it, and there are ways to thwart that. So I'd say we're at least 10 years away. That's my personal guess, and that there are still ways to make it so that you can't make lots and lots of guesses quickly. You have to slow down to do that, or you have to pay a tiny bit to make each guess. So it's going to be pretty difficult to crack those numbers over the next, I don't know, realistically 20 years. We'll see after that. As I say, I hope the blocks and the chains go away and we have more secure, better ways to do it. Now, what about currencies? You can't pay your rent in Bitcoin, at least in many places. Dollars are always, euros, fiat currencies are always going to kind of be king. But boy, there's going to be more and more units of value, and we're starting to see these units of account emerge. So I pay all my people from my wallet easily with Bitcoin or Ethereum. Ether, I just, when we pay people, I just ask them to send me a QR code, and I pay them with the wallet on my phone, and then they receive that money, minutes later. And then, of course, they can cash out to pay their rent. But, in fact, we just looked at an apartment today to rent here in London, several of us to share an apartment. And we actually are asking the landlord if he accepts Bitcoin. So more and more of that will happen. And we'll see. Why does everyone trust the ledger? That's beyond the scope of this talk, but it's basically something called Byzantine fault tolerant, and it is ensured by the work put onto the chain, or what we call the proof of stake. And there are other ways, there are other algorithmic ways of making sure that the ledger is trustable. No, someone says brute force isn't a concern, but hacking is a concern. Absolutely, hacking is a concern. So look, phishing is a big deal in this world. If you've heard of something like MyEtherWallet to store your tokens, you have to be careful because there are phishers out there with MyEtherWallet and MyEtherWallet.cam and other things that are very much like MyEtherWallet but aren't. And when you get there, it looks just like MyEtherWallet because they've copied it, but it isn't. And the money would go to a scammer. So there are tons of scams out there, and our announcement coming up is going to help people with ICOs and buying ICOs to stay safer in those transactions. So yes, it's dangerous. Always do small tests and make sure that the right recipient is getting what you're sending, because if you send it to the wrong person, there's no undo button on the blockchain. You will not get it back. Unfortunate, but it is a great time for scammers because people go quickly and they don't think that much and they don't double check and they do make mistakes. So how can you get started? As I say, start spending time learning. You can go to decentralstation.com. There are lots of use cases. There's a wonderful book by William Mugayar called The Business Blockchain. Many more resources coming online. Join a community like ours. Join any community and get started learning. Is there a wallet that can be used on the phone? There are many wallets that are apps on the phone. And I have about $1.5 million stored on my Licka wallet because I know that I have the private key and no one else does. So the wallet is okay if it is what we call atomic ownership. If it is, technically we call it multi-sig technology, so that the counterparties, like the exchange, don't have access, and only an order signed by my wallet can trigger moving anything on the exchange. That's a bit technical, but you have to make sure that you have atomic ownership, which means you have the private key. If you have the private key, very likely no one else does. What are banks doing? They're panicking, pretty much. Credit card companies, they're panicking. You know what panic looks like? It looks like, we announced to the world that we have a blockchain lab and we're very excited about blockchain technology because it's going to reduce costs and make things more safe for users. And the fact is that they really are wondering what to do. They are certainly, many of them, in fact, Barclays has an excellent crypto lab with some excellent experiments, but this is really the beginning of the end of the large banking dynasty. Banks are being taken apart. Everything they do is being taken apart into sub-units that we're going to be able to do ourselves, and banks have to figure out how to find their way in that. Eventually you'll just get a mortgage from the market. You can imagine mortgage bits, same way as we can imagine insure bits. This is all coming, and there are many experiments going on. I do think that some banks and insurance companies are doing great experiments, and that's the only way forward. It's the only thing that's going to save them. But then when they find things that might be working, they have to then translate that into meaningful, scalable products that the rest of the company can get behind. Because if you have a lab that does cool things, but the rest of the company doesn't ever roll anything out, you're not innovating, right? So innovation has to get beyond the lab. What if your wallet or private key is stolen? You're in big trouble. If your private key is stolen, the money's already gone. So be sure to learn how to back up your private key in a safe way. It's very much like a password. I use a password manager called 1Password. Hey, you know what? We're at 70 minutes already. I'm going to be cut off. I'm going to see you at pillarproject.io. In the newsletter, we're going to have more announcements. I'm going to have more events, and I will put together a special event where we can just chat and you can ask me questions. That'll be an Ask Me Anything. It'll be coming up I don't know, in the next few weeks. I really appreciate your being here. And again, thank you. This is David Siegel live from London, Barclays Rise Accelerator, and the Pillar Project and 2030.io. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the newsletter.